All right. Hello, everybody. We're back to the Volunteer Matters podcast. Mark and Sophia here. How are you doing? So today's podcast, we're going to be talking about promoting volunteer projects, where we're going to share some strategies and insights and best practices to elevate your volunteer programs. And one of the things that we just wanted to start off with conceptually is when we were originally thinking about what we wanted to talk about, we immediately jumped into some of the best practices. And what we realized is one of the most common mistakes that we've seen, we were kind of glossing over. So I wanted to start with that, which is the idea of eyeballs versus education. So in any decision-making process, whenever we're trying to promote anything, whether it's you're asking somebody to donate, or you're asking someone to volunteer, or you're asking someone to buy a product, or you're asking someone to attend an event, that there is this idea of getting attention, which is the eyeballs. But once you have somebody's attention, you have to do something productive with it. So if I stood in the middle of the town square and yelled out, "Hey, everybody, look at me. I have something really interesting to offer." And then they walked over and said, "Okay, what do you have to offer?" And I was like, "Sign up." This, you're not going to get many people to convert. So that's where education comes into play. And what education essentially means is that you're educating the consumer, in this case, the volunteer, on what it is you have to offer, why it's important, how it's going to make a difference for them, how easy it's going to be for them to engage, what they're going to get out of it, what sort of commitment is being made, what sort of prerequisites are there for them to be able to participate. So a lot of people have questions before they decide to give of themselves and give of their time. So when we talk about things like social media and emails and text messages and and being at events or skywriting, whatever it is, those are the eyeballs. And so whenever we have eyeballs, the next thing we want to give them is a place to go to learn more, to educate themselves, so that they feel excited and confident in a decision to actually engage and make a commitment. So like I said, this is probably one of the biggest mistakes we'll see when people do a good job of getting the word out, but then falter on where do I point them? There has to be some place I have to direct them to get good information about what it is that we're promoting. So Sophia, you can then start in on what that actually looks like and what we mean by that.
Yeah, so what goes into an effective description for a project? So, like, once you point someone to a landing page, what should be on the landing page? And no, the number one thing to keep in mind is that you should answer any common questions in your description so that you don't have to keep answering them. So, like, where is this located? What is the role that the volunteer is going to be doing? What's the time commitment like? What skills do you need to have? So answer those questions up front. A lot of times I see that volunteer coordinators save that for like when the volunteer actually comes in for an interview or for orientation, but there's nothing wrong with having those up front. In fact, it will enhance the experience and get more volunteers involved. People definitely like to see exactly what they're getting themselves into.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's actually studies where they've put out opportunities for people to volunteer and then did surveys to say, well, why didn't you engage? The number one reason people don't engage is fear of the unknown. So they don't want to put their name out there or even reach out for fear that they're getting themselves into something that they don't fully understand. So the better information, not that you want to inundate people either, but you just want to put enough information out there so that they know what they're getting themselves into, they know what the benefits are, so that they can make a decision.
Yeah, and if someone reads that and is like, well, my schedule doesn't even work with this opportunity anyway. They don't have to go through the trouble of like, inquiring about that opportunity and then finding out later. Okay, so the second thing is to have a nice catalog of opportunities. So you may have all these different types of opportunities that volunteers can get involved in. To have a way for someone to peruse a catalog is a big one too. So yeah,
Yeah,
if
a lot
maybe
of
you
the
could.
times, if organizations are doing different things where they utilize different volunteers, you might find that volunteers get siloed into certain areas. Meanwhile, they might actually expand their contributions to you if they're aware of the other things that they can do out there. And
Mm.
also, maybe you're advertising something that the person looks into and isn't interested in, but then they go, well, what else do we have out here? Oh, look at this. They have these other programs that are really
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah, actually, this morning I was working with one of our customers to set up their catalog in our product, and this actually came up. So, like, they have two main types of volunteers, one for their ministry side and then the other for thrift store. So they're two very different types of volunteer opportunities, but so in the past they kind of just siloed volunteers one way or the other, and I was explaining like the use of the catalog, and they really loved it. They said, "Oh, like our ministry volunteers can maybe get involved in the thrift store now," and like it opened up a whole can of worms in a good
Yeah,
way.
and there's also like there's a whole lot on social media now where everybody's talking about introverts and extroverts. It's like nonstop in people's threads, different personality styles and all this stuff. But there is a lot of truth to it. So, to have somebody that's going to be a volunteer to actually perform ministry services, as an example, is quite different than somebody working a register or stacking, even within the thrift store. Working the register where they're interacting with people all the time, one person made love, and another person would prefer to be in the background and stacking boxes and organizing things in the back of house. So if you have a diversity of volunteer opportunities, you absolutely should put the diversity up there out front.
Sweet. And the last thing to have on the landing page in your catalog is a call to action. So that's like really helping the volunteer get to the next step of their journey in joining your mission. So make it really clear, easy, and would you say like one call to action per like opportunity? What
Yeah,
would you
you
say
don't
there?
typically want to have too many options for people. Like, so the call to action for volunteering is obviously either click here to learn more about this volunteer opportunity or click here to sign up for this opportunity. Those are going to be your two primary ones. You don't want there to be too many competing paths for someone.
Yeah.
All right, awesome. So if we have this catalog of volunteer opportunities, and we also have individual project pages or like landing pages for individual initiatives, like we were using the ministry or thrift store examples. So you have a place where you can point somebody directly to for a specific program, project, initiative, event, but you also have this catalog where they can peruse the other types of things that they may not have known about. One other thing I'll mention about the descriptions and language that you use on there, this is also a common mistake we'll see, and this applies to other things like when sending out emails and stuff. Sometimes it's very hard to separate yourself from what you know and what you don't realize other people don't know. So, for example, if you are working in a thrift store every single day of your life, there's lots of things that that you say, yeah, come on in and work in the thrift store. And you're like, well, this is my day-to-day life. I know exactly what people do in the thrift store, what types of things what type of work they're being asked to perform, but the volunteers don't. So very much whenever you're writing descriptions or emails or invitations, make sure that you're doing your absolute best to put yourself in the position of someone who knows nothing about this, so that you're putting enough information out there so that, again, it's that fear of the unknown. And there are too many times, Sophia, I think you can probably speak to this even better than I can, where you'll see descriptions and like we are in the volunteerism business. We are looking at volunteer projects and programs and job descriptions all the time. And I'll look at somebody's catalog and be like, I have no idea what any of this stuff is.
Yeah, or they use like a shorthand, like internal shorthand, like an acronym. I'm like, I don't know what that means, you know? To them it means something, but to a brand new volunteer it probably means nothing.
Yeah, the sign up to be a PDQMB volunteer, and then the
Yeah.
description is like, this is happens on Saturdays. You're like, oh, okay. So
Yeah.
yeah, even your returning volunteers who are in the know, it's always good to have those descriptions there to reinforce and remind people. Because sometimes that's another thing is that we get blinded by what we think we already know. And if we aren't reinforcing certain concepts about why a volunteer is there, what their purpose and mission is, what they're going to get out of it, what the expectation is for them, like a good description of what the project is all about, sometimes those details can get lost over time as well. So it's a good
Mm,
reminder for all of us.
totally.
All right, so one of the things we want to talk about is email. This is probably the easiest way and the best way for certain demographics to communicate. So for example, boomers who make up the largest percentage of volunteer hours by far, they love email. So it's something like 80% of boomers prefer email over any other kind of communication. So we'll start with that. So when you are sending out emails, the best thing is to have templates that you could work from that you know work. So as you're getting better at this, build it into your template so that you know that you're repeating good things. You want to be clear and concise. You don't want emails to be too long, but you do want to make sure you're including all pertinent information. So it's a fine line. There's a bit of a balance there. Um, the subject lines are really important, and the first few sentences of your email are really important. And the reason why is most email applications will show you the subject line and the first few sentences as a preview. So if those are duds or they have a bunch of acronyms and things that don't really make sense to anybody but you, obviously your emails are going to be more likely to be overlooked. So make sure you have those catchy things, and also that they're not too generic. Like even in our system, we have in our templates, we have like a default subject line when we go to send an invitation out, and it says, hey, we need your help, something like that. But we also allow you to customize those subject lines at runtime. So the more specific you can be about the type of help or when you need help or what their help is going to mean, the better. You do want to personalize these emails as much as possible. And so if you have if you're sending them out individually, then, knock your socks off. But if you're using a system, then you want to make sure that you can merge personal details into the emails. It means more. Even when people know that a system probably sent this out, if it addresses me by my first name, if it includes information about me specific to the job that I signed up for, or this thing that I completed and you want to thank me for, personalizing goes a long way. I always joke that after doing demos, I get a bunch of emails out of my own demo system thanking me for stuff, and it makes me feel good every time I see the thank you, even though I know I sent it. So that's definitely important too. You don't want things to be too text heavy. Bullet items are great in emails. So as much as you can put things into bullet item lists, that's much better. Yeah, and then the other big part about emails that I always try to emphasize is don't broadcast everything to everyone. So as we get to know our volunteers, we can track what their skills are, what their interests are, the things they've done in the past, how much they participated in the past, what their statuses are, what their qualifications are, what programs they've specifically said they have interest in. And these are all should be a part of your application process so that you have well-rounded profiles in your contact database of volunteers. If it's not, then you need that. It's really important because when we start broadcasting everything to everyone, then people are getting a lot of non-relevant information in their inbox. They're more likely to unsubscribe or ignore your emails. So I always like to put things on a spectrum and take something and say at the very extreme end of it, what would happen, right, in either end. So if you decided to send out an email blast every day to every one of your volunteers asking them for help for all of your projects, nobody would ever look at your emails. They would immediately start going to trash. People would unsubscribe. They put rules in to say, just put it into the garbage. However, if they get less frequent emails that are specific to their skills, interests, past experience, then they are much more likely to engage with that email, read it further because it's more specific to them. So it doesn't feel impersonal. It feels more personalized. Oh, they know me. So.
And then the other extreme is like never sending anything out in fear of, would that be the other
Yeah,
end of
oh,
that?
100%. Thank you. So, and we get this too, is sometimes we get the easiest volunteer to get back is a past volunteer, right? So there's a lot of time, energy, and money involved in recruiting a volunteer. And I say money because a lot of the times we have to background check them. There's human interaction in order to onboard them, vet them, train them, right? They have a better and more well-rounded skill set once they've already volunteered with us in the past. So yeah, forgetting to invite people back is a big no-no. If they've come and done something with us, they've already passed like 90% of the hurdles in order to get there. Inviting them back is critical.
Yeah, that's probably like the lowest hanging fruit. If you have at least a database of volunteers that like their interests, start with them if you need to recruit for some sort of opportunity. They're more
100%.
likely to come back. So the other tool you can use is social media. So don't be afraid of it. It's very important these days. And you can look at it from two perspectives. So, one is from your organization. So if you have pages, like broadcast your opportunities on social media with links to where they can go to sign up for the opportunity. And you have a lot of freedom here, so you could use more storytelling with videos, like different reels, and yeah, so fun photos with graphics. You can get really creative and make it a great place to advertise. And then the second part of social media is encouraging volunteers to share it on their social media. So you actually can leverage numbers. So there's power in numbers. If every one of your volunteers shares an opportunity that they're involved in, their whole friend group on social media is going to see it. So you're reaching a really, really broad audience there.
And if you're intimidated by using social media, I'll give you two perspectives. One is that this is the number one way that millennials and Gen Z volunteers learn about volunteer opportunities. So they're most likely to get their information from social media and sign up from there. So if you're not doing that, then there's going to be a big gap in your volunteer recruitment and interest. The other thing is that if you are intimidated by this, like Sophia says, put a video out on Reels. Like if somebody told me to do that, I would be like, hey, Sophia, can you go put a video on Reels? But
True.
it is actually a great thing to put a volunteer position around. You could do it virtually. And there are a lot of teenagers and college age people that have requirements for hours for graduating from high school and even graduating from college. And this is like right in their wheelhouse, the absolute perfect thing you can say, hey, I have this little video clip I recorded on my phone at this event or in this program, turn it into a reel and publish it on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on Facebook. And for them, it's like such an easy thing to do and an easy way for them to earn volunteer hours and something they would really love to do. It's like they're doing it already. They could be doing it for you. So turn it into a volunteer position if you don't have people in-house that can do that for you.
Cool. I love that idea.
All right. So one of the other things that we'll encourage you to do is to just look around and see what other people are doing. So, how are your peer organizations recruiting and reaching potential prospective volunteers? So there are really creative people out there, and especially if you're in a peer group, which most of you are, like the problems that you as nonprofits are solving. Typically, it's not a problem you can solve alone. So that means that there is a network of organizations solving this problem in many different areas and regions, maybe even different countries. And so most often you do have these peer groups, whether they're by associations you're a part of or even just local associations. So make sure that you're connected with those groups. Make sure that you're following them on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn, and you're just keeping an eye out to see, well, how are they doing this? Because you can leverage things like LinkedIn, Facebook groups, volunteer forums, different events that they're participating in, and sometimes what you'll see too is this is kind of related to all of these categories that we're talking about, but when you start doing a good job of promoting volunteerism, you're actually promoting a lot more than just volunteerism. So let me explain further. The projects that you have to volunteer oftentimes will illustrate or illuminate the value and mission of your organization. So to use the previous example that we've been using, the organization that had a gift shop, a thrift store, and a mission work. Is it mission work? Is that what we said, Sophia?
Ministry.
Ministry.
Yeah.
So, by advertising this thrift store volunteer opportunity, you're actually introducing people to the ministry type of volunteering. So anything that's like that's mission focused volunteering around the actual thing that you're doing, it's just another great way to advertise the benefit of and purpose of your organization. So think about it again when you have a catalog of all these volunteer opportunities. And I'll just throw out like a smattering of different types of projects that are out there. Somebody comes there and they go, oh, I didn't know that they did this. I didn't know that they did that. Look, they have mentoring programs, English as a second language programs. They've got programs for food insecurity and programs for homelessness and ministry programs. And oh, look, they've got a thrift store, and so they actually, it's an opportunity for them to learn more about you. And so see the creative ways that your peer organizations are out there creating that visibility through their volunteer programs as well.
Great. What else? Oh, the other thing is that I think you mentioned this a little bit, but community partners, if you can leverage relationships with them to promote projects, so you can, like, if they're corporate partners and you have a great corporate volunteering program, they can actually help you promote your opportunities to new volunteers.
Partnerships are huge. Find other organizations that have the same supporters that you would like to have or similar programs, and leverage them. Like there's you can definitely find partner organizations there where there's great synergy between the two of you, where you can engage with them to recruit more people. The easiest one, and we did a whole episode on this, is corporate partners. So find employers in your local communities where their purpose and mission is aligned with yours. And even if their purpose and mission is to just give back to their community, well, why not give back through your organization? So that's like a perfect example of, well, why not use them to promote to their 1,000 employees that they may have in your area or something like that. Another thing to consider are exhibiting at events. So this is a more traditional route, but still perfectly valid. So if there are job fairs, festivals, anything where you're getting a group of people together that might align with your mission, show up, get a booth, get a flag, get a table, get some handouts. And if you're already doing these things for, recruiting members or recruiting donors or just doing advocacy work, if you already have these exhibits and events that you're participating in, you should absolutely make sure that you have something about volunteering. So, if you're just there for advocacy work and you're giving out educational materials on a certain topic, let's say, you should also have materials there that say, and if you'd like to participate as a volunteer, here's how you can go about doing that. And again, that's the thing that would be, where are they pointing them to? That's an eyeball, right? And so the sheet you hand them may be a little educational, but then you should also have something virtual that they can redirect back to, something maybe with a QR code that lands you right on some landing page that tells them more about that project, more about the jobs that are available, how they can make a difference.
Yeah, and that's a great opportunity to have existing volunteers be at those events. Like that's yeah, it's an opportunity for them.
Yep.
Yeah, so the last thing that I have is you can actually use radio, print, like newspapers, TV. And those things are not dead, although I would categorize them as traditional media. And yeah, like, you know, put an article out in a newspaper, um, get on a radio interview, that could also drive traffic to you.
Or the modern equivalent to the radio show is a podcast. So if there is,
Mm.
a podcast where you want to reach your audience, then do that too. So, so we went from, some more high tech to some low tech or more traditional. So I'll throw in one more that's a little bit more emerging, which is text messaging. So text
Mm.
messaging, I'll go over a little bit, but we could spend a lot of time on this, but text messaging is fantastic. And it is definitely something where you're going to get the most attention from. People are going to pay attention to a text message far more than they are going to an email or a social media post or just about anything else. And the reason why I say I can talk a lot about this is that you also have to be careful with text messaging. So you can't just text people who haven't opted into receiving texts. So, and there are emerging laws that are coming out around this for whatever reason. They're like, you can send junk mail to somebody's house, you can spam them with email, but if if you send somebody a text and they didn't give you permission to, there are fines. Like there are
Like big
heavy,
fines.
yeah, big thousands of dollars for every instance. So like if you sent out a text message to 1,000 people, you could be like looking at tens of thousands of dollars in fines if they didn't each individually opt into receiving those texts. So if you are going to use texting, which I think is a fabulous way to do it, just when a volunteer registers, ask them for their mobile number and ask them to opt in to receive future text messages. And then whatever service you use to do that, like you could do that with Volunteer Matters, make sure that it's opt-in first and opt-in only, and also make sure that it's easy for them to unsubscribe from those as well. So they could either go into their profile and say, I don't want to receive texts in this category, that category, that category, or they can do the good old fashioned just reply stop to this and I'll no longer get any text messages. And that's going to be the thing that will protect you. So it's the most effective communication method, but it's also the one you have to be the most careful about. But there are good tools out there, including us, that will help you with that. All right. So I think we pretty much hit on everything. Before I do my recap, Sophia, anything else that you can think of, or are we good?
I think we covered it all.
Sweet.
Very
All right,
close
so let's talk about what we talked about. So the wrap up. Eyeballs versus education. So we want to get attention, we want to get people's focus on us, but then we have to follow it up with something substantive. So that was when we were talking about pointing them to a landing page where they can read more about that project, initiative, program, the specific jobs that are available, what they'll get out of it, what your expectations of them are. And that would be in also offering them to browse a catalog of volunteer opportunities, because that will communicate to them the diversity of ways in which they can help, which prevents volunteerism from being very siloed and also offers more opportunities to people who may not like the first thing you invited them to. Using email is fantastic, especially for baby boomers. Make sure your emails are concise but informative. Bullet items are great. And templates are good. So you figure out what works and keep it in the template. Snappy headlines are also important. With social media, one of the things I suggested was get one of these younger teen or college age volunteers and make it a volunteer position where they can regularly post to your social media sites and Facebook groups, on LinkedIn, on Instagram. You could just pop them some information and say, hey, make a post. That's the way you're going to reach the majority of your millennial and Gen Z volunteers. That's where they're finding. So emails for baby boomers, Gen Z and millennials, social media. Then we talked about the idea of seeing what your peer groups are doing, and sort of mirroring maybe some of the great ideas that they have in order to recruit volunteers. Also engaging with community partners where there's good synergy between you, whether they're another nonprofit organization or a corporate partner that's in alignment with their purpose and goals as well. And then we talked about some more traditional means of getting volunteers. If there are any events you're showing up to today, whether it's to do fundraising, advocacy, networking, or specifically to recruit volunteers, make sure that you're giving them good means to learn more about their volunteer programs. And again, an opportunity to point them back to more educational material that they can consider to become a volunteer. And Sophia talked about traditional radio, print, TV, still not obsolete, still quite effective, especially for volunteering that's localized, where you're actually trying to hit your target community locally, geographically. And then the thing I threw in there as well was about text messaging. Probably the most effective communication method, but you have to make sure that your volunteers opt into that before you ever send them a text message, and make it easy for them to opt out of that. Same thing with email. Also, giving people the ability to opt out is super important. And you also, last thing on email that I just thought of is that there are some tools out there where you can send emails, but you'll end up getting into spam. And there are actually quite a number of full-blown companies out there that do this, and 3/4 of their emails get put into spam, which just shocks me. You have to make sure you get a good partner that's paying attention to all of the rules, so that they have what's called high authority from an email deliverability standpoint, so that your emails end up actually in people's inboxes. So if you start hearing rumblings that I didn't get that email, that went directly into spam, I couldn't find it, can you please resend it? It might mean that you should consider another email tool to make sure that those deliverability ratings are high. All right, so that wraps it up. How are we feeling? We're feeling good, Sophia?
Feeling really good. I want to say, if you have a topic that you want us to talk about, you can drop it in the comments. We'll check it and see see if we could throw it into an episode.
Yeah, that sounds great. And make sure to
Great.
subscribe, right? And so
Share
that we
this.
can, yeah, share with other people. Yeah, great idea.
Yeah, awesome.
Beautiful.
We'll see you next time.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.